Before we get into the video, I need you guys to do me a favour. Number 1, like the video. Also comments, let me know your thoughts on the story. Glasgow security firm owner George Walker Sr. had contracts across multiple sites across Glasgow. Now he was making very good money and was known in the city, something other security firms were jealous about. In fact, rival security firms were so angered by George Walker's success that there had been rumblings that there was a bounty on his head. Police had warned George Walker that there were threats to his life and his family's life at least 8 different times. Now George Walker had actually been struck with a sawn-off in August 2005 as he walked near his home. The men responsible were never charged because witnesses could not ID the person responsible. Now in August of 2006, George Walker Sr. and his son George Walker Jr., who was 20 years old, and a young dad were at home in the Bridgedale Terrace, Castlemilk, along with his sister. Now the family had sat down to watch a movie on the TV. Now Junior was a talented actor and worked as a window fitter in order to support his 2-year-old son. He also played for Rangers at youth level. While watching TV, suddenly several shots were fired into the front room, breaking the glass. Junior was struck in the head. Now Junior was not the target. He had nothing to do with his dad's security firm. Now George Walker Sr. was. Now police say the tragic incident was a contract taken out by rival security firms trying to take over George's highly profitable business. Moments before the triggermen had fired into the house, George Walker Sr. had picked up something off the floor. Everyone turned at the sound of glass shattering. George Jr. thought it may have been a brick through the window, and that's why he stood up, and that's when a second volley of shots started again, and again he was struck in the head. Now George Walker Sr. actually caught his son in his arms as a pool of red went cold. Junior told his dad through laboured breaths he loved everyone and how he was going to die. Now by the time ambulance crew arrived on the scene, sadly Junior was already pronounced dead. Police investigated the cold and brutal M and found 4 men responsible: 41-year-old Alan Burns, 41-year-old Thomas Campling, 36-year-old John Smith, and 26-year-old Marcello Pacitti. And Marcello admitted to the crime as being a triggerman and also being responsible for the M. He also agreed to grass on his pals. In court, Marcello explained John Smith was the person who organised the hit and paid the men for the M. And Marcello says that he had a GUN and so did Thomas Campling. Marcello was ordered by John to walk up to the front door and then press the trigger. Marcello says that when he looked through the window and he squeezed the trigger, he's seen George Walker Jr. already on the ground, so he pressed it twice. Now the people responsible had travelled to the scene in a Ford Mondeo and then escaped. The Ford Mondeo was then set alight and burnt out. The men then went to Thomas Campling's home in Bassetton Road. John Smith paid Thomas £10,000 and Marcello £8,000. Now Marcello, Thomas and John were all jailed for M and attempted M and all received life sentences. As you can imagine, Marcello now has a bounty on his head for grassing on his gangster mates. And as for George Walker Sr., he now has to wear a vest. In the same incident, George Walker Sr. was actually struck in the shoulder and the foot. Due to the commotion and actually holding his son, he had no idea that he was struck until after. Condolences. Stay safe.